Could a person who struggled with promiscuity or sex addiction then struggle with becoming hyper religious? Absolutely, they can. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This person says, can you please post the first video here? Click on the comment that you see in this video, and you should have that. She says, do you think it's one fixation being transferred to another? For example, the person who was fixated on sex and now to fill that void / gap, they're fixated on religion, and they're fixated on religion, and being fixated on religion is acceptable. Absolutely. And I just want to point out here, in my experience, this happens with any type of addiction. So whether it's substance or other addictions, people transpose addictions a lot of the times, and they may feel like they're doing so in a way that's healthier. So to fill the void or fill the gap, they may overdo it in another area. For example, with eating disorders, and I'll just briefly touch on this here. A person may go from bulimia or anorexia to orthorexia, which is where they're hyper focused on being healthy. They become focused on healthy eating behaviors and feel like they're doing nothing wrong because I'm healthy, but they actually overdo it in that area. A common complaint about people who are in recovery, let's just say, for example, the 12-step program, AA, NA, that kind of stuff, is that, some people complain that like, oh, the X person in my life started doing that program, and now that's all that they talk about is recovery this and God that and God this and God that. Absolutely. So it then becomes like, it's something that other people pick up on, but people become consumed with wanting to correct their behavior, or they become consumed with replacing their behavior. And so replacing behavior that they thought was problematic, but it is possible to develop an unhealthy attachment to the healing process, where you want to do too much of it, or you try to do too much at once, or you're at least and it's not always necessary that you're healing, but you're just talking the talk. And I kind of touched on this a little bit in the first video, but where people are just sort of speaking the rhetoric of recovery without actually going through it, because a lot of times people will say, well, I've read this and I've read that, and they just they become consumed with presenting themselves to be enlightened or healed by speaking the talk of someone who's healed. So people may jump in and go to church, and they become consumed with saying, well, I'm in church now. And that's really more of like, that's the identity that they want to be associated with. I want to be associated with a healthy person who follows Christ and puts God over everything. They become obsessed with it and doing everything perfectly, and just having this specific image that revolves around church. Many people who have addictions and that I've worked with over the years, I don't want to be negative when I say this, but very seldom do I see people quit an addiction and that's it. Most of the time, what I will see in my experience as a mental health professional is people who sort of transpose addictions, meaning that they will replace one for another, and they feel like they've healed a particular one because they don't do that anymore. But unless you become well versed in how to regulate your own nervous system, you have a purpose and a strong foundation as to what you're doing and why you're doing it. A lot of times people may return to that prior addiction. It's one of the reasons why I say People who have challenges with sex usually also have challenges with God and or religion, and people who have challenges with religion usually also almost always have challenges in areas of sex. That is my experience. That is my professional opinion after working with people who have had challenges in this area. There's usually pathology in both of those behaviors for those people that they struggle with. And a third area which people may have pathology with, so there's religion and sex, and the third area is usually money. So it becomes a triangle of sorts for me in terms of treating people who have challenges in these areas. Because if you don't catch it, if you just sort of believe the rhetoric, believe the speaking that people say, they can appear as though they're healing and they're evolved and they're changed now, but really what they're doing is they've just become hyperfixated on one thing and will vacillate back. And that's why you see that a lot too in eating disorders. Eating disorders is not my specialty, but I've worked with a number of people who have eating disorders, and they will, if you work with eating folks with eating disorders, a lot of times they'll vacillate through eating disorders and eating disordered behaviors, despite what they talk about. So, or they may change it to another type of addiction. So, alcoholisms and eating disorders, there's a comorbidity there. There's other types of comorbidities and things, not in everybody. I just want to put that clear, but with a lot of people, there's often comorbidity. And some people will say, this is what I've heard people say over the years. Oh, I just have an addictive personality. But thanks for asking this question and putting this out there. That's one of the things I wasn't able to touch on first, but I appreciate this. And it's definitely a very real thing. Thank you so much.